Today, I want to talk to you about understanding and managing your expectations and how that can work hand in hand with forgiveness to promote personal growth and healing. Because I believe that forgiveness isn't just about saying, I'm sorry. Forgiveness is about living our lives and being able to expand ourselves into growth and healing and become who we're actually meant to be, which is learning to trust ourselves and know ourselves better. Hi, I'm Brenda Reese, freedom and forgiveness coach, and a person just like you that is learning to navigate life and all its challenges. I teach a forgiveness process like no other. It's a blend of practical and spiritual forgiveness. This process guides you into knowing how unforgiveness can be keeping you stuck in your relationships, both personally and professionally, releasing resentment and finding joy. Each week, I share practical and some not so practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and other people that are on this journey just like us. This is for you if you are ready to turn your pain into peace. Welcome to the Forgive Yourself podcast. But first, I wanted to start with kind of revisiting what forgiveness is not and what true forgiveness is. So what forgiveness is not is it's not a feeling. If it were, we would rarely forgive ourselves because we would not feel like it. Rather, forgiveness is a choice, right? Now, a lot of people won't agree with me on that, but forgiveness is a choice when it comes down to it. And that gives us our power back. Now, forgiveness is not weakness. It takes a lot of strength and courage to acknowledge the pain, the hurt, declare it, and forgive it. Forgiveness does not mean pretending that the hurt did not happen or hiding from the hurt. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. The phrase forgive and forget, it's not reality because we have a mental hard drive here that remembers everything. Plus, there's value in remembering certain situations so that we can learn from it. And forgiveness does not mean condoning or excusing wrong or mean behavior. And it doesn't minimize or justify the wrong. We can forgive the person without excusing the act. Now, forgiveness also does not mean reconciling. Now, if you do want to have a relationship, forgiveness is a key component to reconciling. But forgiving someone does not mean that you have to reconcile with them. Forgiveness is not based on the perpetrator's decisions or actions. Now, even if the other person never apologizes and asks for forgiveness, we can forgive. So I've told a story about my dad. It's in one of my podcast episodes. And what I like to share about this is that how he rejected me at 5 years old. He told my brother and sister he didn't want me to live with him. He wanted them to live with him. And then when I tried to see him again when I was 16, and he said, I don't want to see her. I don't want to talk with her. It was painful, really super painful. And then years went by and didn't hear anything and thought he had died. And then I learned through this strange way that he was actually in an Alzheimer's facility. And I was given the opportunity to go and see him. Now, at this time, I had already started the forgiveness work. So I knew part of me says, Daddy, right? I wanted him to love me and acknowledge me. And I wanted to hear, I'm so sorry that I didn't treat you the way you wanted to be treated. A part of me wanted to hear that. And yet another part of me knew it wouldn't be good. I wouldn't get that recognition. And because of the work that I had done, I knew that I didn't need it. So I knew I was going to be okay. And then he died. And his sister, my aunt, called me and told me he had died. And she had said to me, Brenda, I am so sorry that he never showed you love that you so deserved to have. Now, the beauty of that experience was I had already forgiven him throughout this powerful work, right? I had already come to an understanding. Yet, did it feel good to hear that apology, even if it wasn't from him? Absolutely. But was it needed? No, it was like a little cherry on top. Because most people, if there's a super high percentage, never hear an I'm sorry. And we hold ourselves captive in waiting for that apology that will never come. So, yes, it feels good to get an apology, but it isn't needed. Because waiting for an apology will actually cause your own suffering. Because forgiveness is not conditional. It isn't about whether someone apologizes or not, on whether you can forgive them or not. Having it be conditional on that apology can really cause our own suffering. Now, forgiveness is not justice. Justice usually involves an acknowledgement of wrongdoing, like that apology and some sort of reward or punishment. Now, forgiveness is something that can occur whether justice happens or not. And justice is important, I will say that, as a consequence to wrongdoing when breaking the laws and hurting people. It's an important part of our human lesson. But it is not, justice does not have to happen for us to forgive. Now, forgiveness is also not about changing the other person. This one's big. It's not about changing them, their actions, or their behavior. It's to bring peace to our own hearts and minds. And forgiveness does not mean that you trust that person. Okay? Trust is gained with honesty and truth-telling. You can forgive them, but really have discernment with that relationship around trust. Trust is earned. And forgiveness is not about changing the past. It's about shifting our perception around what happened so that you can be present and create the future you desire. It is about personal growth. Now I want to share about the benefits of forgiveness because it's so important for us to have this well-rounded idea. And there are so many studies now from Harvard, Stanford University, and the Mayo Clinic that we've all heard the improved heart health, which is actually validated, and improved self-esteem, right? But did you know that with these new studies coming out, that they are actually documenting decreased levels of anger and hostility, increased feelings of love, there's a more enhanced capacity to trust, mainly ourselves. We get freedom from the events of the past. They're actually documenting actual freedom from these events of the past. There's major improvement in psychiatric disorders, so thinking of depression and anxiety, and that forgiveness improves your endurance. Now think of that for sports, working out, and having sex, right? That's a benefit. And also, did you know that forgiveness improves your manifesting? This is liberation. Forgiveness really liberates you. Forgiveness is about freeing ourselves from the chains of resentment and anger. It's releasing the emotional burdens that hold us back. Forgiveness allows us to open up to personal growth and transformation, and it's an essential step on our path to peace and self-discovery. So, what is the connection between forgiveness and personal growth? Forgiveness is not just about letting go, right? It's about embracing the opportunity for growth and transformation. By forgiving ourselves and others, we create room for personal development and expansion. It does require deep introspection. It does require empathy, and it does require courage to confront our own shortcomings. And one of the modalities that I use in my coaching and teaching is radical forgiveness. Now, it's been an amazing experience in my own life, allowing me to forgive my dad, like I talked about, forgive my mom, the sexual abusers that I've had in my life, my exes, and myself. It's one of the modalities that my clients feel give them so much transformation in a short period of time than they've ever experienced before. And that was why I wanted to do this work. That's what drew me to this, to be able to share it with you, because it is a powerful modality. So I would like to share, there are 5 stages in radical forgiveness, and I want to share a little bit about each one so that you can understand what it's about. And so you can decide if you wanted to discover more about it or not, because these 5 stages serve as a foundation for personal growth. These stages were developed by Colin Tipping, who was the founder of the Radical Forgiveness Institute. And this will guide you, right? These 5 stages can guide you on a journey from pain and blame to understanding and compassion. And that's what I found for myself. So let me give you a little overview of each of the stages. The first stage is acknowledging our pain and telling our victim story. Now, it's important to honor our emotions and express our hurt. By sharing our story with trusted individuals or professionals, we release that weight of our pain and allow healing to begin. Having our stories witnessed and validated allows the freedom to let that story go and brings in the ability to reframe it into a story of empowerment and personal growth. What I share with clients, what I say to them is that what you're doing with me is sharing this story for the last time the same way. It's that powerful. And there's also studies that are showing that sharing our story is actually healing. They have an actual institute for a lot of the veterans to be able to share their story. And that's what it's about, to have their story witnessed and validated. And that allows for the healing. It's one that we don't want to miss, but we don't want to stay in the victim story. I want to emphasize that. This is about learning to share your story that same way the last time, because aren't you tired of your story? Aren't you tired of the way that it weighs you down? I mean, I got tired of hearing myself over and over again, being the victim. And that's another way you can tell you're ready to forgive, is if you're tired of your own damn story. The second stage is where we feel the feelings. Now, this step involves embracing our emotions without judgment or resistance. Now, this is challenging, but by experiencing and accepting our anger, our sadness, our hurt, disappointment, we create space for this emotional growth and healing. And I want to emphasize on accepting. So this is a way that we can learn, because how many of you were taught how to feel, or were you told to go to your room or quit crying or quit being a crybaby? How many of us heard those things? We were stifled in our emotion because our parents or our caregivers didn't know how to handle the emotions themselves, so they couldn't do it for us. As an adult, we get to learn to find safety in feeling our emotions and feelings. And we get to learn to accept them, and they will then dissipate quicker. It's an amazing process. Now, the third stage is collapsing the story. And here we challenge the perspective that we hold about the situation or the person who has wronged us. By recognizing that our story is just one interpretation, we open ourselves up to the alternative viewpoints, which can take the sting out of the pain the way we've been living it, which is actually causing our suffering. And this enables us to pave the way for personal growth when we shift our perception. So this stage is where we're going to separate what our interpretation of the story is, which is our suffering, and what actually really happened. And I found that with my father. It was interesting when I went through this process with Colin and I was working on my dad, because, I looked for love in all the wrong places. I was looking for men to appreciate me. I was doing all the things, trying to find the dad, the energy, trying to be accepted in my life. I don't know how many of you can relate to that. And in doing this work, where he said to me, when I was through this process where you're emoting and you are expressing what they should have done, what my expectation of him was. And when he said to me, maybe, Brenda, he didn't know how to be a dad. Now, my expectation, my perception was, hey, if you have kids, You're ready to be a dad. Okay. But what he said to me was powerful. He said, Brenda, have you ever not wanted to be a mom? Where the burdens and heaviness of being a single mother especially ever weighed you so down that you didn't want to be a mom? In all honesty, even though I was ticked off at him, I said, yeah. And he said, well, maybe your dad didn't know how to be a dad. Now, this isn't true for everyone. So if this activates you or triggers you, I'm sorry. But what it did was, after a while, okay, I had to walk out of there and I had to take some time with this, but it shifted my perception around the story and around what I was expecting of him and what he was capable of doing. And this is important as we go forward, because I'm going to talk about the expectations. But what it did was it helped me to release that expectation. It helped me to really reframe the story, which we move into next, which is the fourth stage. And that's where we reframe the narrative. Now, this involves finding a new meaning or purpose in our experiences through self-reflection and introspection, or having a coach or someone, bring out this story like he did for me. We can shift our perspective from victimhood to empowerment, leading to personal growth and resilience. And that's what it did for me. It led me to let go of that weight, that story, to be able to shift my perception, look at it differently. And that leads me to the fifth stage. And this is where we're integrating forgiveness into our lives. We're not only integrating the forgiveness, but we've made room. We have released all this baggage. And now we're going to bring in what we want to create in our lives. This is powerful, because forgiveness is an ongoing process, and it's essential to practice self-compassion and extend forgiveness to ourselves and others on a daily basis. This is part of a routine. It's not just a one and done deal. I wish it was. It'd be easier. But this commitment to forgiveness on a daily basis will nurture personal growth, and it creates a life of peace and fulfillment. Now, I want to, as I mentioned about the expectations when I was talking about my father, I want to shift our focus to expectations, because this is another thing that really causes us pain and suffering. Expectations are like a set of beliefs and hopes and assumptions we hold about a situation or a person. They are influenced by many experiences, social norms, culture, and other external factors. So whether we realize it or not, we all have expectations of everyone around us, our friends, our family, colleagues, ourselves. How many of us have some high expectations of ourselves? Let's be honest. Raise your hand. I'm raising mine. What I share with clients is that expectations are resentments waiting to happen. Because, come on, we're all fallible. And when we have an expectation that someone cannot meet for whatever reason, we get frustrated, hurt, disappointed, because it's activating something within us. And then we get resentful towards that person or that group. And we've all heard that saying, resentments are like taking poison, ourselves expecting the other person to die, because resentments damage us and not the other person. Resentments are powerful in decreasing our energy. Resentments are like a boulder that sits between me and you. Resentments are a boulder that sits between me and what I want to accomplish. Resentments are like a boulder that keeps me from becoming who I'm meant to be. Resentments are heavy. They take up space, and they don't allow us to expand and to grow, because they are like boulders. They are like rocks that keep us weighed down. Now, we have to hold on to our resentment for a little while, because we nurse it for a bit, because we do need to feel the feelings. I do want to say that. Sometimes we have to feel the hurt to be able to learn from it. But overall, if we hold on to this resentment for a long period of time, it's causing us pain. I have worked with people who didn't want to let go of those resentments. I've worked with people who have shared with me that their mothers or fathers have taken these resentments to the grave, and they're still not talking to the other sides of the family. We don't have to do that. I remember one story that a client told me. She said, oh my gosh, my mother and her sister didn't talk for 40 years. And she asked her mother, why is that? And her mom says, I don't know. I can't remember, but she's going to have to apologize first. That's powerful. I mean, you can't even remember why, but by gosh, I'm going to hold on to being right. And that's the problem with resentments, is that we hold on to wanting to be right. There's power in this. There's power in this identity of being the wronged one. And we want to change that. We want to change that because all of what I've been talking about with the resentments and these expectations, these are what I call unmet expectations. And there are 3 common reasons why people have unmet expectations that I want to chat with you about. First, it could be due to ineffective communication. So sometimes we assume that others know what we want or need without actually expressing it. Have any of you ever done that? I expect you to know what I want, but I'm not going to tell you. I've done that a lot of my life. Now, this often leads to, of course, misunderstandings and disappointment. And it's important, really important, to learn to communicate our expectations clearly and openly so others understand what we are hoping for. Because bottom line, don't you really want what you're trying to share with them? So, for instance, I remember going for communication counseling with my husband now. And when we were dating, it's like, okay, if we're going to go on, we're later in life, we got some baggage, we need to learn to communicate. And I remember her saying, okay, you have 2 different communication styles, and you've got to learn to be able to speak the language of the other person if you want to get what you want. So I had to learn to be able to share what I wanted with Doug so that he could then understand, so I could communicate. Otherwise, I was expecting him to know what I wanted. That's not fair. Now, secondly, we may have unrealistic expectations of others, like expecting our partners to read our minds, or like always being available for us. Have you ever really ticked off when you texted someone and they're not texting you back? Or you're calling them, leaving a message, they don't get back to you, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're getting frustrated and upset. All right, that was a personal story. I used to do that. It's important to recognize that everyone has their limitations. And it's not fair to expect someone to be something they are not either. Or expect them to know our needs, read our minds. When we can take a look at why you would not share your needs or wants with your partner or friend is a really valuable exercise to know yourself and be able to grow more into who you are. Because are you that person, like I just talked about a little bit ago, about wanting to be right? You need to know me and understand me, but I'm not going to tell you who you are or what I want. Why is that? Why would I not want someone to understand me? Well, defense mechanisms, safety. There's a lot of things that we've learned growing up that are no longer serving us. So the more that we can uncover those and move through them, accept them and move through them, the more we can have better communication and not so much suffering. Now, the third one is differences in values and priorities can lead us to unmet expectations. So we may value punctuality, say, while somebody else prioritizes flexibility. It's crucial to understand and respect the differences rather than expecting others to change to match our values, right? Or to match our own. So for instance, when we moved in together years ago, my husband and myself, he kept everything neat and in its place. And I liked things a little bit more comfortable, not really messy, but I had my piles here and there and I didn't have it so pristine. We had to learn, right, to work together. We had to learn because there's always a learning opportunity or growth opportunity for all of us in all of these circumstances. So we had to communicate. We had to kind of figure out what areas do we want pristine, air quotes, and what areas is it okay? What's my area? What can I have more knickknacks? And where else can I have it a little bit more comfortable with pictures and photos and different things like that? It's important. So everything is a learning opportunity or a growth opportunity if we choose to look at it this way. And we can share how we feel and what our expectations are without expecting the other person to match our own. So instead of blowing up and saying, forget it, I'm out of here for this relationship, we were able to communicate our need and our want. I had certain areas that I wanted lived in, and he had certain areas he wanted to have a little more pristine. In the forgiveness world, the pain of unmet expectations is described as disempowering ourselves through the judgment of others. That's a big one. Now, we often feel that people should be different than they are, but this only brings us pain. Instead, we can choose to accept others as they are, allowing ourselves and them to be free. We can't always understand why people behave the way they do, so accepting them as they are is the key to releasing the pain and judgment of unmet expectations. Now, I want to emphasize something here, and that is accepting others as they are doesn't mean allowing them to mistreat or abuse us. No. If someone in your life is not treating you with respect and love, it may be necessary to set boundaries or even leave that relationship. The lesson for you may be to learn to prioritize your own well-being and surround yourself with those who value and respect you. And when I say anyone, right, that doesn't respect you, that's not treating you with love and respect, I mean anyone, even your family. So as we navigate this interplay between forgiveness and managing expectations, remember it is an ongoing practice. We can learn to trust the process. So I would like you to think about someone with whom you're having an expectation, whether it's yourself or someone else. Now, I want you to just take a moment and write down, what are your expectations of that person? And then, so this is your expectations. I expected my dad to love me and take care of me and be all that. And then I want you to write down, what do they actually provide? Okay. Well, my dad didn't really provide anything, so I would write that down. But maybe in your case, they are providing something. So I want you to talk about everything, all the good that they're providing and the not so good stuff that they provide. Maybe like my dad would be, well, he didn't provide any good, but he provided a lot of pain and suffering for me in not accepting me, right? So I could write this down. Then you want to take a look at what things have you done that helps to bridge this gap between what is the expectation and what do they provide or not provide. Okay. This is important because this is where we're going to take responsibility, which is a really big thing for forgiveness, right? Self-responsibility. So what have I done? Okay. What I did with my dad to bridge this gap was what I expected. I expected him to be a dad. I expected him to show up. I expected him to love me. And what did he do? Well, he left and he didn't pay attention. He said he didn't want me. But what have I done? Well, I've done my own healing. I've done the inner work around it. So take a look at what things have you done to help bridge this gap between what you expect and what they do provide. And then take a look at, has that worked? Can it work? Is it doable? In my case, with my dad, yeah, it was doable because while I didn't get what I would really want was a relationship with him, what I got was healing. And then I want you to take a look at what new actions or behaviors could you adopt that are based upon what really happens and not what you expect. So take a look at what you can develop. What new actions and behaviors can you develop that is really based on what's going on in this relationship? So, and not what you expect. So that was me. So I could take a look when it came to that decision. I could make the proper decision about not going and seeing my dad, which when someone has Alzheimer's, if you surprise them or they don't know who you are, that can be very disconcerting and it's really downright mean. So I could make that decision. I could take that new action and new attitude, right? And say it wouldn't be healthy for him or for me. And then another question is, what are the benefits of this, right? New way of thinking, this new attitude, and this new adoption of things. And for me, the benefit was peace of mind and heart. I felt okay. I felt good about myself and the relationship when he died. And then there's just two more, because the next one is, if you're not willing to change your expectation, do you know why? Oh my goodness. So this is where you can take a deeper look at your beliefs and patterns. This is the good stuff, where we see what thoughts are actually running the show and possibly keeping you in resistance to growth. So if you're not willing to change your, and you might not, this is good information, not judging it at all. This is just being honest with yourself. Do you know why? Because there's some patterns and beliefs there. And then the last one is, what are the expectations you have of yourself? Because when we look at others, we see it as a mirror, seeing things we have denied, repressed, and rejected about ourselves. Because when you can be willing to see relationships as mirrors and then do the inner work for yourself, that's the magic. That's the life changer. That's the expansion. That's what you're looking for. So we are all human and will inevitably have expectations and judgments from time to time, or a lot of the time. The key is to increase our awareness and strive for acceptance and understanding. By doing this, we can find common ground in our humanness and cultivate greater peace within ourselves and our relationships. And that's really what we want. We want to be seen, heard, and understood. Managing expectations and practicing forgiveness are powerful tools for personal growth and healing and building really meaningful connections. And don't we all want a good connection? Healthy connection. When we embrace both, we can pave the way for a more fulfilling and harmonious life. And together, when we do this together, we can unlock the true potential for personal growth and healing through the transformative power of forgiveness. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, would you do me a favor and share this episode and then follow us on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss one episode of the Forgive Yourself podcast, where every Friday you will get tips, tools, and stories so that you can turn your pain into peace. Take care.